Hi everyone and welcome to today's morning report on Tuesday 29th of September with me, Rich Pro Market Analyst at Handtech Markets. The European trading session has got off to a bit of a weak start, down on FTSE and DAX, and also CAC quite strongly down actually, but arguably not as negative as the markets could have been. There was a real sell-off yesterday, that was driven by concerns over commodity prices. One of the main drivers of that was this issue potentially that Glencore, one of the major commodity companies, mining stocks and also commodities trader, Glencore could have, there was an analyst note that suggested that maybe Glencore could actually be sort of go bust really, so that wind up the sales really of these commodity prices, and really they came under pressure, and markets around the world sentiment driven very negative. We had a big risk appetite issue generally. Here we go, the VIX, sharp increase on the VIX yesterday on Wall Street. What else? We had the US 10-year yield falling well below the levels that we'd seen in the last 5 weeks, and also that was seen pretty much on the 2-year, although not so much on the 2-year, interestingly enough. I think 2-year to a certain extent was supported by a lot of 2 or 3 Fed members actually yesterday, which Bill Dudley and Charles Evans, for example, were suggesting that we were going to get a rate hike in 2015. So Fed members continue to come out and suggest that is going to be the case. But certainly the concerns of global growth were the impact on that US 10-year yield, which certainly is a big safe haven flow. Safe haven flows into the yen as well. So that was the case. Whether that's going to continue or not remains to be seen. There's already been a bit of a turnaround on the yen, slight turnaround on the day on the US Treasury yield, 10-year Treasury yield as well. So that's interesting. And I'll get towards indices in a minute because I've got my chart today, which is the FTSE 100. But in the meantime, I'll just sort of take you through what we've got to look out for today. We've got... Sorry, just get the right one. First of all, well, sort of throughout the morning, really, you've got the Eurozone sentiment indicators. I mean, at 10 o'clock, there's sentiment indicators for business, for economic, industrial, and services. So that will be interesting to see what impact that will have on the euro, especially, and also DAX, maybe CAC. Then at again throughout the morning, you've got the German regions giving their inflation data, culminating at 1 o'clock UK time with the countrywide German inflation data. CPI expected to dip slightly back to plus 0.1 from plus 0.2, and the German inflation data, obviously being such a big portion of the Eurozone economy, it is a bit of an indicator for obviously Eurozone inflation, which is out later this week, tomorrow I believe. And then at 2 o'clock we've got the Case-Shiller Home Prices Index. This is the Case-Shiller Home Price Index. And that's expected to increase to 5.1%, so you can certainly say that the housing prices in the US have turned a corner, certainly bottomed out anyway, and that's starting to rise again, so that's interesting. And then at 3 o'clock we've got the consumer confidence data. That is expected to dip back to 96.1, but you'd still say that consumer confidence is still pretty high throughout 2015. So no massive impact yet on consumer confidence from all this market turmoil, but will be interesting to see what happens there. You'd probably say that if consumer confidence started dipping below 90, then that would be a concern, but around 96.1, if that was the case, then that wouldn't be too bad. So my market, my chart of the day is the FTSE 100, and I was saying about the fact that indices were under pressure. Well, we had this massive turnaround actually. If I zoom in here, you can see this sharp bull candle on Friday, completely unwound yesterday by a sharp bear candle, and again today we opened sharply lower, breaking below the 59.33 support. In theory, that should then start to see the FTSE falling away back towards the lows. Now, I'm still of the opinion that I think markets may have bottomed in August, but to see whether it's going to have a retest or not, I think, well, the DAX, for example, I think is very close to having a retest, and I think that's what it's threatening. I think FTSE slightly outperformed the DAX, but still I think that the outlook on breaking that 59.33 33 level. You'd say that rallies are a chance to sell on FTSE, and certainly looking at the intraday chart, you would take that view as well. So you're now seeing these sort of key highs coming in at lower levels, which again suggests rallies are a chance to sell. Looking at the hourly RSI as well, consistently back towards 30, failing sort of at the high 50s, 60s level. So that would suggest you're in a negative configuration, and your rallies are a chance to sell. So you've had this selling pressure throughout yesterday, which continued today. You had a gap down at the open. So yesterday's close, 59.60 odd, is basically where that gap sits now. So the fact that you've had a slight rebound today doesn't necessarily mean it's sort of major buying support coming in. I think it could be just the fact that we've still got that gap open from this morning, and gaps do tend to be filled. So let's just see, I think, as this one unwinds. We haven't had a major unwinding yet. 35 points down on the FTSE at the moment. So you could well see this rally that we're seeing today as a chance to sell. So obviously today's low, 58.77, is the initial support, but I would certainly say that the having broken below all this support here, let me get the crosshair going, having broken below these lows, these key lows here from 59.33, it doesn't look great, does it? And you'd say that all moving averages falling away, so any rallies are, I think, a chance to sell, and your chances are you probably are going to now see a move back towards the low. Whether we see a decisive breach of the low, maybe a slight breach of the low, don't know yet, because I still think that was a pretty key low, because we did have a big volume spike on that day, and that was a fairly big sell-off. So we haven't yet had sort of the acceleration of this selling pressure yet. So if that does start to come through, you could well see that key low breached. So I wish you good luck in your trading today on FTSE. Looks like selling into strength, and I will speak to you later. Thank you.